What's up? I'm B and welcome to my channel. Today we have a reaction video because Brittany Dawn recently posted a Q&A on her YouTube channel, and I thought, I bet there's some good things to talk about in there. I wonder if she's answering any hard-hitting questions. Let's find out together. Also, we're wearing merch today. This is the Mars collection, and the shirt says "You are not cute and he is not pleased," but if you look closely, there's a line in each of the knots, and so it reads, "You are cute and he is pleased." I will leave the link for this down below. If you are interested in getting yourself a shirt, you can do that there. Now, without any further ado, let's get into Brittany Dawn's Q&A.
And welcome back to my channel. Today I have just me. This is going to be a sit-down Q&A. I'm really excited about it. I do have a little furry friend right here, so if the camera gets moved around at all, I apologize ahead of time. He is just attached to my hip. I wanted to start off this Q&A with a Bible scripture. I just felt like I wanted to share Bible scripture, so let's get to it before I hop in to do the Q&A. I am reading out of John 15. I am the true vine, and my Father is the gardener. Every branch in me that does not produce fruit, he removes, and he prunes every branch that produces fruit so that it will produce more fruit. You are already clean because of the word I have spoken to you. Remain in me, and I in you. Just as a branch is unable to produce fruit by itself unless it remains on the vine, neither can you unless you remain in me. I am the vine, you are the branches. The one who remains in me, and I in him, produces much fruit, because you can do nothing without me. If anyone does not remain in me, he is thrown aside like a branch and he withers. They gather them, throw them into the fire, and they are burned. If you remain in me, and my words remain in you, ask whatever you want, and it will be done for you. My Father is glorified by this, that you produce much fruit and prove to be my disciples. That's a scripture that I just absolutely love, and I will link my Bible below for you guys. I read out of the She Reads Truth Bible, the CSB version. I am here to do...
Okay. What a lovely verse, and since Brittany opened up her video by sharing a verse, I thought I would also share some scripture. And I have got my trusty little Bible right here. So I want to read 2 verses from the book of Proverbs. Now, Proverbs is a book that was written by Solomon as well as some other contributing authors, and it was just kind of like life advice. You know, it's giving sage wisdom. It's a guide to kind of how Solomon and the other authors think that you should act and behave in order to have the best life. And so the first verse is Proverbs 16:8, and it says, "Better to have little with godliness than to be rich and dishonest." So I like that one a lot. And then I also have one from the same book, Proverbs chapter 22, verse 16. "A person who gets ahead by oppressing the poor or by showering gifts on the rich will end in poverty." And I just thought, wow, that's really wise. You know, for some reason, those verses were just calling me today. So I just thought I would share some of that wisdom with everybody. No one in particular. No target in particular for those verses.
I posted on my Instagram story last week, I believe, for you girls to ask me questions, girly questions, life questions, all the things, and you did not hold back, and I am here for it. I tried filming this yesterday, and Satan pulled out all the stops. My camera was not working, then my memory card was not working, and I think I have it all figured out, finally. So, without further ado, let's get started.
I don't like when people blame stuff like that on Satan, because I feel like you're diminishing the actual impact that Satan, like evil spirits, can have in our lives. You know, you always have camera problems. Every video, not every video, but in a lot of the videos I've seen of her, she's like, "Oh, the camera died. Oh, it's overheating. Oh, it's XYZ. Like, you probably just have an old camera and you should get a new one." Like, I don't know what to tell you. But yeah, I feel like attributing every inconvenience to Satan or to the devil kind of diminishes the real kind of sinister nature of spiritual warfare. Not to sound all like cuckoo bananas, but, you know, as a Christian, I do believe in spirits, and I believe that there are things that go on around us that we can't see, and you know, so that's just what I believe. Everyone's entitled to their own opinion on whatever it is they want to have an opinion about, but when people blame little inconveniences on the devil, I'm like, Come on.
Brazilian wax, yay or nay? Well, I'm gonna just be real honest, you guys. I'm all about transparency here. I'm laughing.
Show us your finances.
Truth be told, I wanted to get a Brazilian wax for, tell me all about it, little man, for our wedding, for obvious reasons, for our wedding and our honeymoon. But my mother-in-law, who I love dearly, was like, honey, have you ever had one of these before? And I was like, well, no. And her response was, people either do really well with it or they have a really bad breakout and a really bad reaction and can get rashes. And I was like, that's my worst nightmare on our wedding night. I withheld. I did not do the Brazilian wax. I have never done a Brazilian wax because of that underlying fear. If you have, and you've had one before and you've had good results or bad results, tell me all about it, little man. I'm right there with you. Leave your comments in the comment section below because I'm very curious. You know, that's...
I feel like maybe you could talk to...
I know I shouldn't pursue...
a waxer about that. Maybe you could say, you know, I'm real concerned about skin reaction. What do you suggest? Is there any way we can approach this? I mean, that's what I would do, but whatever. I literally don't care about Brittany's Brazilian.
A man, but thoughts on first moves and maintaining the friendship. Here's the thing, sister. If you are having to be the pursuer, that is not the man that God has for you. The man that God has for you will pursue you without fault. He will pursue you persistently, patiently, and respect every set of boundaries that you put out for him. And if he's not pursuing you in just a friendship alone, like if he can't pursue you in a friendship, why would you much less want a relationship with him? Like marriage is falling in love with your best friend. So if there's not even a friendship there, then yeah. And I also understand that not everyone like meets and has the opportunity to be friends before they start dating or become in a relationship before getting engaged and married. Like that was not my story with Jordan. We met and we're like, oh my gosh, what is happening? And I fell in love with him very, very fast. And I'm thankful I did. But I didn't fall in love until the Lord.
She said she spent months rejecting him and like pushing him away. I guess maybe just a weird behavior of someone who didn't know how to process their own emotions. I don't know. Regardless of that, this advice is decent. I hope we get some good juicy things in here to react to because, I mean, I'm somebody, I don't think there's an issue if you like ask a guy out on a date. For me, when somebody says like, I know I shouldn't pursue a man, I kind of want to push back on that a little bit and say, well, you like being pursued. Do you think that that person might like it as well? You know, I don't really see anything wrong with a woman being the one to ask a guy out or putting effort into the relationship because that's what we want. So why would we think that somebody else wouldn't also want to feel desired? However, if the other person is giving you that feedback of like not interested, yeah, leave them alone.
Confirmation, that is the key. How did you deal with resisting urges before you and Jordan were married? Well, do you want to say hi to the peoples? Oh my goodness, you're getting so big now. Okay, here we are. Oh, I can't even hold you anymore. Okay, here we are. There you go. A few minutes. What would you like to say?
I feel very nervous.
You miss Daddy? Daddy's at work. Yeah, he'll be home soon. Yeah? Okay, good boy. Okay. Sorry.
That dog is thinking, man, I hope I never get hit by a car because Daddy will shoot me in the head instead of trying to take me to an emergency vet. That's what that dog is thinking. That's so dark. I'm so sorry. We all know the situation. We all know what happened to their other dog. And now seeing her with another dog after being so irresponsible, I'm like, I feel uneasy.
How did you deal with resisting urges before you and Jordan were married? Let's try this again. We set hard boundaries, and I'll get into that in a little bit because I think there's another question about setting boundaries. If you don't set boundaries, like it's just a setup for failure. You have to have those in place before you get into any relationship. We had that conversation on like the first phone call, y'all. Like before we even had our first date. Called me the night before we actually sat down for coffee together, and we had that conversation right then and there. I was not in a place to entertain any man that was going to try to push past boundaries or wasn't going to honor said boundaries. And I was like, if he's the one, he's gonna respect this. This is gonna go well. I so remember the nervous feeling of like having that conversation and like, oh my gosh, he's either gonna run for the hills or this is confirmation from the Lord. And when I had that conversation with him and it was just like word vomit, I was like, I don't know how to say this other than like, I want to say sex for marriage. There it is. Like I was so just like mortified at first. verse because we just don't live in a culture that's a normal thing. Upon saying that, Jordan's response was, wait, no way, me too. And I was just like, what? Lord, I hear you. So yeah, that was a little side note, but the man that God has for you will pursue you and honor you.
Boundaries, yes, very important. I think it's important to establish them very early in a relationship, but I also wonder if it's a sign when you talk about them before you even go on your first date. I wonder if that is just indicative of the fact that you are letting this become almost an idol in your relationship. Like this purity idol of this is the thing, like this is what we strive for and this is the only thing that matters, this is the only thing that's important. Because if we're going by how Brittany views this, she views sex outside of marriage as a sin, okay? What are the other sins that we could possibly commit as Christians? Lying, cheating, stealing, engaging in gossip, partaking in hateful thoughts and speech. All of these things are sins. And so, we've had the conversation before of why I believe people put sins related to like your physical body on a higher kind of risk scale. The people take those a lot more seriously than other sins. My opinion in a nutshell is that it's easier for the church to control you if they can control your body and they can make you think that that's the most important thing to be concerned about. But with Brittany and Jordan, it's like, so you're so concerned about that. Are you also making sure, like, are you giving as much honor and reverence to the other things that you could be doing wrong? Are you also worried equally about lying and scamming? No, obviously not. But why? At the core of it, a sin is a sin. And the Bible does tell us that different sins kind of fall on a sliding scale of how severe they are depending on who the person was who committed the sin. So if a regular person like cheats on their spouse, yeah, that's bad, that's a sin. But if a pastor does it, then it's worse. This is according to the Bible, because that pastor has more responsibility and more knowledge. And so with Brittany being a religious leader, yes, if her boundary and if her belief is that sex outside of marriage is a sin and so she doesn't want to engage in it, totally great. But as a religious leader, she should be focusing on all of the other aspects as well. All of the other things that we need to focus on as well, because this one singular issue is not the only thing that you can do wrong when you are dating somebody or when you are like entering into a relationship with them. Does that make sense?
For God's timing in a world that's all about hookups. Yeah, this is such a good question. We live in a hookup culture. We live in a one-night stand culture, in a sleeping before we're even a thing culture. Sorry, Oakley is moving my camera again. And I get it, like it's so hard to wait. Here's the thing, if you're a female watching this, even if you're a male watching this, I think we can all say that we have a desire to be longed after by someone. We want someone to love us. We want to be in love. We want to be in an intimate relationship, an emotional relationship, like a really just healthy, spiritual, physical, emotional, all these. We want to be in that, a covenant. We want to be in a marriage. That's what marriage is. And that's a natural desire that the Lord can place on someone's heart and places on most people's heart. I don't know of anyone that woke up and they're like, I want to be alone and never see another human again. Like, even if you don't want to be in a relationship, you want friends. When you get to the point where you want to be in a relationship, like, you have to remember your values and your morals and what God says about you, because that alone, that standard, is going to raise the bar even higher when it comes to finding the person. Now, God is going to lead him to you, but Satan's sneaky like this, and I'm calling him out for what he is. He's very sneaky and he knows exactly what you want, and sometimes he will send it in a perfectly wrapped package, but there will be one thing missing, and that one thing is honoring the Lord. And so if they do all the right things and they have the looks that you want and they have the job and the words and they take you on nice dates, but God isn't in the center of it, that's not the one, sis. You can't make someone fall in love with Jesus. Like, you need to wait until you're with someone that loves Jesus as much, more than you. I was gonna say as much as you, but more than, yeah, you know what I mean. And I think when you have those values and those standards, it just makes it easier to say no to people. I struggle with how to add God into my
I feel like I had a stink face for like 90% of what she was just saying, because she just went all over the map. She talked about hookup culture, but then she also talked about how a man might come as a perfect package. He has the job, he has, the friends, the status, the looks, whatever, but he doesn't love Jesus. So those are kind of two different issues. I literally don't even know how to tackle that in a time efficient way. How to wait on God's timing in today's culture was like the original question. I feel like she didn't give any like advice there. That person was asking for help, and she's just like, oh, God places the desire to be longed for on your heart, so make sure you find somebody who loves Jesus. I wonder if something more helpful would have been to say something along the lines of, desiring to feel attractive and wanted and longed for is a totally natural human emotion, and there is nothing wrong with experiencing that and wanting to be in a relationship. However, sometimes if that's the only thing you're focusing on, somebody might come who's not the greatest fit, and because you desire it so greatly, you might settle for less than what you truly want. And so my advice would be to make sure that you're the kind of person that you want to be with. I'm trying to say this without sounding harsh, but I can't. Like, why would a person who has met all of these requirements and it is up there, why would they want to be with you if you have not also met those requirements? And so I would just say, make sure you're working on yourself, make sure that you are the kind of person that you would want to be with. And in doing that, you're probably going to be exposed to other people who would meet your requirements, like people who would be a good fit. If you're a Christian and it's important to you that the person that you're with is Christian, maybe you join like a singles Bible study. Maybe you go to an extra class at church. Maybe you go out and do like a community service project. Do those things that will expose you to other people who have the same values as you. And hey, if you hit it off with somebody, great. And if not, at least you're still doing something that fills up your own cup and makes you feel good and gives you a more well-defined sense of who you are.
Daily activities, any advice? Something that really helped me in my walk with the Lord is this saying, and I don't remember where it's rooted from or where I even heard it from. It's not about spending 20 or 30 minutes with God. It's about spending time with God every 20 or 30 minutes. It's really this simple. Spending time with Jesus when you're in your car, on your drive to work, taking the kids to school, picking them up from school, going to the grocery store, cooking dinner at home, working out. Like, you guys, I have had some of the best time with Jesus when I'm working out, when I'm moving my body. It's not always like an audible conversation. Like, sometimes I just pray, thanking the Lord for the ability to move my body, to have a healthy body, to work out, to relieve stress, like all those things that I'm so grateful for. It's not about always being in quiet time. It's not about always being in Bible study. Like, yes, those things are great. And I absolutely would recommend getting into a routine, a structured, healthy routine of spending time with Jesus daily, whether that's the mornings, the middays, or the afternoons, or the evenings. For me, it's my first thing in the morning. Like, I have to have my quiet time with Jesus in the morning. But that doesn't mean that I don't spend the rest of the day with him too. It's about an intimate relationship with him. Jesus is your best friend. He is omnipresent. The Lord is everywhere you go. And to be able to have that relationship and have that communication, that dialogue with him throughout your day, like when things are great, when things are hard, all the in-betweens, the mundane, like walking with Jesus through everything. That's what it's about. Like, whether you have a desk job or you work at home, like, make it a priority to just spend time with him every 20 to 30 minutes. Start there. And before you know it, like, it will be something where you don't want to do anything that isn't in the presence of God. You want the presence of God to be everywhere with you. Sex before married? Absolutely not. Nope. No, thank you. I did do that. I did, and I have, and I would never do it again. I'm so grateful that Jordan and I made a decision before we even actually sat down and met each other. We made a decision that if this was to become a thing, if this was going to be a relationship, because obviously we didn't know on the first date, we didn't know what God's plans were for us, but we set that precedence of, I am saving myself for marriage, and whoever God has for me will honor that and respect that. And that was the best decision that I ever made. There was so much baggage that came with with sexual promiscuity and sleeping around and hookup culture and one night stands that I had before I met my now husband. Anxiety, depression. I was starting to fall back into eating disorders, trying to think that if I was skinnier, people would love me. Finding my validation in men. It was just the emptiest feeling, you guys. Soul ties, I could go on a whole thing about soul ties. And what I can say is this: waiting to have sex with my husband until marriage was the best decision that I ever made. You do not have to test drive the car before you get it if you know it's a Lamborghini. How to stop fearing that my husband will leave or...
We've had a lot of conversations on this channel about quote unquote sexual impurity, and I'm not going to harp too much on the concept, but whenever somebody says like, oh, I decided to save sex for marriage and it was the best decision ever, you don't need to test drive a car if you know it's going to be a Lamborghini. I always want to ask them, well, how far did you go? What was the line? Was it purely just a matter of the fact that he did not stick his penis in your vagina, or did it extend further beyond that? Because I would be willing to bet that was their threshold. It was, you know, other things are okay because they're not technically sex, because they're, you know, there's no insertion. So we can do these other things. We can do the other things and we're still pure because we didn't technically have sex. And when somebody has that kind of mindset, I always just want to ask, like, what's the logic behind that? What is the overall goal? Because if you've done all of these other things, if you've sent nude pictures, if you've talked like, you know, dirty to each other, if you have done oral sex, those things and actual penetrative sex, like that's just a difference in mechanics, right? So what is the actual motivation behind not wanting to have sex? Is it because you want to make sure that, you know, you guys are actually a good fit and you're not just kind of getting carried away in the physical relationship? You know, you want to make sure you're focusing on other things as opposed to that. I can think of a lot of reasons why someone would want to kind of put a cap on how physical they're willing to get with their partner at certain stages in the relationship. I think, you know, for anybody who says like, I want to wait until I'm married to have sex, that is amazing. Good for you. As long as it's not just because this is what the church told me to do, and you understand and can clearly articulate the reason for wanting to do that. I think it's great to have boundaries and to set them up early and to be clear about them and to say, hey, here's what I'm comfortable with, or, you know, I really want to make sure that on an emotional and spiritual level, we're a good fit before we intertwine this into our relationship, because that's just another element that, you know, might distract us from really getting to know each other and being intentional about the way that we date. I understand that and I get it. But for anybody who just says like, well, I'm not having sex until I'm married because that's what the church told me to do, or that's what Brittany Dawn told me to do, I would encourage them to dig a little bit more into that and really truly find the motivation and find the spirit of that. Not just the blanket like text of it of I'm waiting until I'm married to have sex. Like, what is the spirit behind that sentiment, and diving further into that. That's what I would do.
Me. By the way, he's amazing, but I fear this. Wow, that's probably something that a lot of women can resonate, so thank you for being vulnerable and asking this question. I do want to say this. If he is not, how do I answer this? I wish I had Jordan here to answer this with me. If he's not doing anything that's making you think that, and you're just scared of that in general because you've been cheated on in your past by someone else, don't let that past that you have seep into your marriage. You also have the power and the authority through the Holy Spirit inside of you to bind and rebuke that in the name of Jesus. That is an enemy attack. Insecurity is a seed that Satan plants to try to grow in your marriage, to hurt your marriage. And I just want to say this, like, as a Christian, we can dismantle and disarm the schemes of the devil. So if you're watching this right now and insecurity has been getting the best of you, say, I bind and rebuke insecurity in the name of Jesus. And Lord, I ask that you would replace that with your peace, your comfort, and your love. God is so faithful. He's so faithful to show up so quickly in those places. On the flip side of that, if your husband is doing something that's making you have questions or is making you feel uncomfortable, like, you are in a position to have that discussion with him. He is your husband. Don't fear having those conversations with him. It's sad that I'm even having to have this discussion and answer this question, but I do realize that that's a very prominent issue in today's culture. Everyone is trying to find something that's greener on the other side, and it's just not the case. Freshmen in college, tips on stereotype of being young. I'm ready to move on to real life. I want to say this, and I'm going to keep it really short. Don't try to rush through life. It happens so fast. Life goes by literally so fast. I blinked and I was 30. I thought I was just 21 yesterday, and now I'm 30 and living life with the love of my life, and it's the best feeling. But I remember the days where I used to wish away all of that stuff. Like, I remember when I was 18 and I could not wait to live on my own and graduate high school and get out and do life, and life hits hard sometimes. And then you get into real life and you're like, wow, high school was so easy. So I just want to encourage anyone watching this that's younger, like, don't wish away your life. Today is a gift, and we're not promised tomorrow. So every day you wake up, just ask the Lord, Lord, where do you want me today? How can I be a vessel for your kingdom? And please let me realize the beauty of these moments. Are you going?
Honestly, if you're not watching Brittany Dawn with a critical eye, like I am as a creator who makes content on her, I can see why people would fall for her. I can see it. If you're not watching, like, trying to find an issue in the things that she's saying and, like, identifying those for the purposes of, you know, bringing awareness to her less than admirable traits, I can see why you would enjoy her content and why you would, like, fall for it, I guess.
Your pregnancy with YouTube and Instagram once you become pregnant? Absolutely. I actually kind of already know how I'm going to tell Jordan when that time comes. I'm not pregnant. I think a lot of people have thought that I am. And even if I was right now and we weren't ready to tell you guys, we wouldn't. Yeah, we will absolutely share that. I think it would be really, really hard to hide a pregnancy. Yeah. I can't wait for that day.
Yeah, because you're always posting.
Will. Realistically, since you're a Christian, do you still continue to sin even though it's wrong? We all sin every day. We are broken sinners in need of God's saving grace. And I say that all the time. If you're looking for a perfect Christian, you will never find them. You are going to make mistakes. You are going to sin. You cannot live a perfect life. The only one that lived a perfect life on this earth was Jesus Christ himself. And that is the gospel. Like, that is why we need Jesus, because to enter the gates of heaven, we would be separated from his love, from the love of the Father, if it was not for Jesus. On the flip side of that, to live in sin willingly is to abuse God's grace. I'm going to say that again. To live in sin willingly is to abuse God's grace. Does God give us grace for mistakes? Absolutely. He gives me grace for mistakes every day, whether that's a little bit of road rage when someone cuts me off 3 times, or, you know, accidentally saying a curse word. Like, there's things that happen, you guys, that we just, like, in the heat of a moment, some things happen sometimes. Your flesh responds before you have a chance to process what the Lord and the Father would want you to do. And that's okay. There's grace there. But to give you guys a perfect example of what I mean by abusing God's grace, before I truly came to know the Lord, before I had an intimate walk with Jesus, I was choosing to live in sexual sin. I knew what I was doing was wrong because of how I was.
I'm so tired of hearing about sexual sin. I'm so tired of it. I'm so over it. I'm so done with the conversation. Let's find a new example. I feel like Brittany uses that because she knows that a lot of people can kind of relate to it, and it's something where so many Christians engage in sex outside of marriage while still perpetuating the idea that you should be chaste until you are married. Literally, so many Christians engage in this cover up. And so she knows that she can talk about it and she can admit to her sin freely without too many people judging her. Yeah, sure, there's always going to be people who judge you for what you say and do, but she knows that this sin is going to be one that's accepted. Choosing to live in sin is an abuse of God's grace, right? So scamming people and lying to them, that's a sin. So you are abusing God's grace because you are grifting. Regardless of the She Lives Freed retreats, which I absolutely do not think anybody should go to because she has no qualifications or training to run a retreat and they are expensive as heck. Let's go back to the fitness scams, right? You knowingly scammed people out of their money. You took advantage of people who were vulnerable for profit. And you know, you came back with your I'm sorry video and then your video after that talking about how everyone was made whole, right? Everything was taken care of. And so at that point, that logically, you know, if you've told us, oh, everyone's been fully refunded, like everything's been taken care of, why wouldn't you use that? If people really had been made whole and their refunds had been fully processed and everyone had been taken care of, why wouldn't you talk about that more willingly? Because that is what people know you for. A lot of people, not everybody, but most people know you for that. So why wouldn't you say, I was in such a bad place at that time. I was living in sin by being deceitful and dishonest, And I had my come to Jesus moment, and I realized that that was not the way to live, and I've turned it around and I made everybody right again. I gave them all their money. What a transformation. God is so good. Can I get an amen? Why wouldn't you talk about that? Because that's what people really want to hear about. It's because you know that that's not really what happened. It's that you chose to scam people and you chose not to make things right with them, and now you're just brushing it under the rug, pushing it under the rug. You say that doesn't matter. Don't talk about it. Sorry. I'm so sick. I'm so sick of the conversation about sex before marriage. I'm so over it.
I knew it was wrong. And it was the sin now, ask for forgiveness later, toxic mindset. And that is a very, very dangerous, slippery slope. When you choose to willingly live in sin like that, your heart is going to grow cold and it's going to pull you further from the Lord. What type of birth control are you using? None. Nada. I think we talked about this in our last video actually together, a marriage Q&A. We are not trying, but we are not trying. We're not putting pressure on it. Just because we've seen couples around us, married couples around us that have put pressure on that before and have told us that it like put a damper on their marriage. And so Jordan and I refuse to let that happen. I'm gonna be real honest, the baby making process is really fun though. So, you know, if the Lord just saying. Just saying, you guys. Kind of random, but what is your opinion on dating apps? Here's the thing. I know couples that met on dating apps and they're literally just adorable, so cute, Christ-centered marriages. To each their own. I feel like God can lead you to the one in many different ways. And if a dating app is what works for you, great. But I will say this.
We serve an all-powerful, omnipotent God, Brittany, so why wouldn't he be able to lead someone to their spouse over a dating app? Obviously.
Lot of nastiness on dating apps, so use discernment. How do you know he's the one? This is a question that I get asked a lot, that Jordan and I get asked a lot, and it's really as simple as this. Does he have a walk with the Lord? Does he know the Lord? What are his fruits? Like, what are the fruits that are showing? Is he patient? Is he kind? Is he meek? Is he humble? Is he gentle with his words? Like, I could go on and on. Does he respect your boundaries? Does he have boundaries? Like, all these things, they just all start adding up to a bigger picture. I shared on my YouTube, and I'll actually probably post it as a short here on YouTube. I shared this on TikTok. I'll probably post it on YouTube. But one of the most powerful prayers that I ever prayed was, Lord, if this is not your will, please slam this door shut. And if this is your will, please let it be known. And the Lord is so faithful to slam doors shut so quickly, you guys. My camera died again, you guys. So I had to stop and let it charge. So I apologize if the lighting is a little bit different.
Girl, get a continuous charger. Like, at this point in the game, why don't you either have a backup camera or a continuous charger?
What is your Christian perspective on all birth control? Is it right in the Lord's eyes? This is something that honestly I feel like everyone is going to have different convictions over. Personally, I stopped taking birth control back in November of 2020. So I think it was November. It might have been October of 2020. It was shortly after Jordan and I started dating, and I just felt such a conviction from the Lord. There was no reason to be on birth control. We were not sexually active. We were not having sex. We were saving all of that for marriage. I had obviously consulted with my doctor previously and just stopped taking it cold turkey, and was really just overtaken by fear, to be completely honest, not knowing how my body was going to respond. I was on birth control for 10 years, so you could imagine that's just a long time to be on a pill, to trust that your body, it's almost like I had control over my body, and I think that's what the Lord was convicting me of. How do you get your teeth so white? Yeah, I
just would like to add a layer to that conversation, that birth control isn't always used to prevent pregnancy. There are a lot of medical conditions for which birth control is prescribed. So I don't think that medicine should be a conversation of morality. I think it should be medicine, and if your body needs it, your body needs it. Or if you are using it to avoid pregnancy because you don't want to get pregnant, that's what you should use it for.
To look up what veneers were like 3 years ago because everyone was asking if I had veneers. I don't have veneers. These are my teeth. I had braces for 5 years. I'm going to tell you like a really disgusting, weird fact about me. I have a genetic gum disease. It's a periodontal gum disease. I believe it falls under that category. I'm not a dentist, you guys. I don't know. I'm just telling you what my dentists have told me and my surgeon told me. I had a 4-hour mouth surgery 6 7 years ago. They had to put me under, basically scrape gums off the top of my mouth, put them on top of gums that were receding, and long story short, I have cadaver tissue in my mouth. It's disgusting. But,
Cadaver tissue?
Here we are 6 years later, and we're doing good. We're doing all right. My teeth are white. My smile is good. Like, I had braces for 5 years. Like, y'all, my mouth has been through a lot. What does the Bible say about alcohol,
how are your teeth so
recreational
white, though? That doesn't answer the question. What do you use to keep your teeth white? Sometimes people behave in such an erratic or irrational way that it makes you wonder, like, if you're the one who doesn't get it, like, if you're the one who has the problem as opposed to them. And that's how I feel right now. I'm like, am I missing something? Is it me? Am I the reason that I don't understand this? Somebody literally asked, how are your teeth so white? And she told a story about her gum disease.
Use junk food, things that are bad for you. I'm going to keep this really short because I feel like this could become a whole video in itself. Your body is your temple. It should be treated accordingly to that. That's all I'm going to say. Curious if and how your relationship with your body has changed after leaving the fitness community. Yeah, I don't really know how to answer this without going into also too much detail, but I've actually been wanting to film a video about this. My mindset has drastically changed since leaving the fitness community, and I can't tell you guys enough how much of a blessing that was for me. I was really trapped in a lot of just toxic spiraling thoughts in my head because of comparison, because of the industry itself, because of the pressure that was placed on me as a woman, a pressure to get a boob job and implants and change my body and not just appreciate how God made me. So many things, and I'm not talking about like hair and makeup, like that's legalism. I mean like physically changing my body. The pressure was so substantial. I really wanted to sit down and film a video about that. Maybe this is the Lord kind of nudging me into that place of doing so. But until that video, like, I will just say this, I try not to get emotional. The Lord saved me from so much. God saved me from such toxic thoughts and toxic just approaches to life. Why am I getting emotional right now? Maybe I am pregnant. God is good. And he just breathed new life into me. Washed me white as snow. And so yeah, if you want me to sit down and film a video about that, I would love to. Balance between hair color, self-tanner, etc.
Wow, okay. So your body is your temple, and that's all I'm gonna say. Let's not even, let's just not even address the fact that some people don't always have access to foods that are good for their body. Either they're not within a reasonable distance from their home, or they might not have the funds to make those choices and to make those purchases. Like there's that. And then I don't want this to come off as if like I have an issue with chewing, but Jordan chews tobacco. And so how are you going to sit here and be like, your body is your temple? That's all I'm going to say about that. Full well knowing that your husband is like constantly on your Instagram with a dip lip.
Accepting how God made you. Well, that just kind of goes into what I was just talking about, so this is actually a perfect transition. Hair color, painting my nails, wearing nails sometimes, like having makeup, those things that's legalism. That is literally
what
legalism.
Does that mean?
And I want to encourage...
Painting your nails, those things are legalism. That sentence doesn't make sense.
If you don't know what legalism is, I will try to put it here on the screen. Legalism.
Excessive adherence to law or formula. Okay.
It's like religious chains. Nowhere in the Bible does God say that you can't color your hair, you can't paint your nails, and you can't wear makeup, or otherwise you don't get into heaven. That's legalism. Those are legalistic, religious.
I wonder when nail polish was invented. Like, was that even a concept that would have been addressed in the Bible? I don't know. Historians, hook me up. Let me know.
That's all I have to say about that. How do you keep up with marriage, a company, and Instagram all at once? Talk about a strong woman of God. I think by company you meant my ministry. I have an incredible team of women that help me run this ministry. It is not just me by any means. If you're watching this, you know who you are. The Lord has so strategically blessed me with women around me and community around me that can lift me up and call me higher and call me deeper into the Lord's presence. And when you focus on
if you're watching this, you know who you are. Like, why wouldn't they know who they were by getting their W-2? Like, I give up at this point.
everything else just falls into place. Marriage is fun. Marriage is amazing. As far as just managing all of it, I'm actually not good at time management. And so just having people in my life that help me with time management has been really such a blessing. What did you major in? I was in school for biological sciences and animal science degree with the intention of going on to veterinary medicine school. If you're new around here, I grew up on a horse ranch, worked at a vet office for 5 years. It's just wild. Your life never pans out how you want it to, and that's a beautiful thing. Would I go back to college? Probably, maybe, if that's God's plan for my life. I definitely hate leaving things unfinished, so if the Lord was like, hey, you have grace to go back to school and finish your degree, I'd be like, cool, let's do it. But until then, I'm
But
just
what would you do
completely
with
okay
that?
with not
What would you do with that degree? You're gonna open up your own veterinary office? Like, what?
having a degree and being a college dropout. How many kids do you want? We want 2, maybe 3. We've talked about 3. We've also talked about 2. 4 would be way too much, I think, but I also don't want to say that because the Lord's plan is funny. What were physical boundaries that you and Jordan had while dating? Sorry if this is TMI. This is not TMI at all. We've actually kind of talked about this in some of our previous videos. So boundaries for us looked like no making out while laying down, no laying down together and making out. Basically anything that involved laying down
That's the same thing.
and making out, absolutely not. Those were not allowed at all. Laying on the couch together, we would lay like perpendicular, so like my head would be here, his head would be here, and we would lay like this, or we would lay toesies like this, and like his toes and my toes were touching. Just doing silly things like that to protect yourself from getting into situations, because in the heat of a moment, you have 2 options. You can stop and pray, or you're going to make mistakes and cross boundaries that you never intended on crossing. And that's a really just difficult place to put yourself in. I would not recommend going to that place on purpose. Like, do everything that you can to try to prevent that from happening from the get-go. Experience getting off of birth control.
To each their own. If you want to set those boundaries for you and your relationship and both people are happy and feel confident and comfortable with those, that's great. I think it's kind of odd and sad to have to police your body so much that you can't like lay together with your partner on the couch or like cuddle up and watch a movie together. I don't know. For me, doing that is very emotionally intimate. Like I really value doing that. That makes me feel very close to my husband. And so if while we were dating, we weren't able to do that, I don't know. I'm sure we still would have gotten married because we love each other and we chose to marry each other. I don't think that would have like thrown anything off, but I would have been missing out on a lot of emotional closeness and intimacy that I value. So it just makes me kind of sad.
Well, here we go. Okay, so I was on birth control for 10 years, but stopping birth control ended up being the best thing that I did. I was just like super anxious, depressed. I would have really crazy mood swings all the time, like just start crying for no reason. I just felt really bloated all the time and I felt like inflamed. I didn't really realize that I had inflammation until I came off of the birth control. And then I was like, holy cow. Came off the birth control, stopped dealing with anxiety. Panic attacks were pretty much non-existent at that point. Depression gone. Mind clarity, like I can't even put into words like the difference that it made. I was able to think clear. I was able to focus more. My inflammation like immediately went down. I was completely gone within like 2 weeks. I realized that my body had been fighting birth control for probably about a year. Like literally was just fighting tooth and nails on it. But coming off of birth control was the best thing that I ever did for my body, for my health, and I will never go back on birth control because of that. Why did you stop going plant-based? Basically,
Fair enough. Everyone's body reacts to medication differently. I appreciate that she said like she got off of it because it wasn't working for her body, and like adding that element. I feel like before she said she got off of it because she was being convicted by God because her and Jordan weren't going to have sex, so she shouldn't need to be on birth control. And now she's saying her body was fighting it. 2 things can be true at the same time, I suppose, but just little inconsistencies there that are interesting to take note of.
I started running into a lot of health issues. I was dizzy all the time. I just wanted to sleep all the time. One morning I woke up and I was walking out to the kitchen to like make my coffee, and I just passed out in the hallway and like just down, like just out cold, hit my head first. I went down head first. Don't know how long I was laying there. It could have been for 2 minutes, could have been for 5 minutes. I had a pretty bad concussion. I kept trying to fall asleep on the couch, and Jordan was working, and so he ended up leaving work early and came to check on me, and then he ended up saying like, no, you're going to the emergency room. And I'm thankful that he took me there. But that was kind of a wake-up call. I was like, okay, what's going on? They ran a lot of blood panels. They did recommend trying to incorporate meat again, and I was like, well, shoot. I had almost found identity in being plant-based, if I'm being completely honest. And I was so scared to start eating meat again out of fear of like, are vegans gonna like hate me, or plant-based people gonna like hate me for this? Like, but I had to do it for my health. Like my body was literally saying, I need this right now. I incorporated steak and chicken the first week and my body flourished. I had so much energy, it was ridiculous. What I want to say to that is just pay attention to your body. Like if your body needs something, especially if you have doctors telling you that your body needs something, like listen to them. How to prepare for a wedding night as a Christian woman. Okay, this is just a fun question. I think women put way too much pressure on themselves. Yeah, women put way too much pressure on themselves. Just have fun and give yourselves grace. Jordan and I talked about this in our previous video, but our wedding was exhausting. I was like going since like 6 a.m. By the time that our wedding night was over and we were heading back to the hotel, we were obviously both excited for obvious reasons, let's be honest. But we were also very, very tired. Like I was exhausted, drained, so was Jordan. Just being pulled in so many different directions, and then go, and you don't eat a lot on a wedding day because you're so busy with everything else, and just all the factors that came into one. Our wedding night was amazing. Just gonna throw that out there. But the most amazing part was our honeymoon. It was just like a whole 8 days of just complete and entire bliss. And so, yeah, give yourselves grace on your wedding night. Would you dye your hair a darker color? Confession. I've actually been thinking about it. Not like seriously thinking about it, but like it's crossed my mind a time or two, and I'm like, maybe I could start going darker. I understand that if I go back to dark hair, you can't just go back to blonde hair. It's a process, and that process took me over 2 years to really get to this level. I'm fearful. I'm so fearful that I would like not like it and just be like, this is awful. Let me know in the comment section below if you think that I should try darker, if I should stay blonde. What are your goals in the next 5 years?
I have no opinion on that. I do not care about or judge anyone for their physical appearance, so no opinion.
I used to love setting 5-year goals. I used to love setting 3-year goals.
I'm so sorry. After I said that, I was like, you sound so mean right now, just like so monotone and like witchy. She should do whatever she wants with her hair. It's not that deep. I don't know why I said it with such a like, I don't care what she does tone.
And 10-year goals, and to be completely honest, I have completely stopped doing that. My life looks ridiculously different than I ever thought that it would. It has been a complete 180 shift in my life, and I'm so grateful for every single thing that the Lord has changed, and the things He's uprooted, and the things He's planted, and the things that have bloomed, and the things that have died. Like, I'm so grateful for all of it. I just have realized through the thick of it all that as much as you try to plan your life out, life is never going to go according to your plan, and that's a good thing, and that's a beautiful thing. And so I think just surrendering that 5-year plan to Him and saying, Lord, like wherever you put me in 5 years, let it be your will and not my own. Yeah, the Lord knows the desires of our heart, of my heart, of Jordan's heart, but we want it to be the Lord's will and not ours. Too soon to talk marriage. We've been dating for 6 months and we've had the hard talks. No, like here's the thing. There's nowhere in the Bible that says you have to date for a certain amount of time. There is nowhere that says you have to date 6 months or 10 months or 14 months or 2 years. Like there's nowhere in the Bible that says that. Just make sure that you've both heard from the Lord. I feel like, you know, when you're young and you're in love and you're like, oh my gosh, we're gonna get married, but like, is it of the Lord? Are you guys glorifying the Lord? Is your relationship honoring the Lord? If the answer is yes, and you see the Lord in the midst of all of it, then absolutely. If it's not honoring the Lord and you're living in sin, maybe you need to take a step back and ask the Lord, Lord, is this really your will? Favorite ways Jordan shows?
I would like to add something to that, which is I don't think there's any like set amount of time that you have to date somebody before you know you want to marry them or before you get married. But I would encourage anybody who is thinking about getting married really fast to take a look at like their dating history, because if somebody's like 45 and they meet somebody and they date for 2 months and they're like, yep, this is it, this is the fit, that person has probably had a lot of dating experience. So they know very quickly what they do and they don't want, and like the kind of person that they, are willing to finally give up their independence for. Somebody who's a little bit younger might sit there and think like, they're a Christian, I'm a Christian, and we like each other and we want to get married and pop out lots of babies, so let's do it. But let's think about maybe if you haven't dated a lot of people, giving it some more time, because you really are, if you're younger, you're developing into who you are going to be. Like, I think we're always kind of changing and evolving, but a lot of those big changes do happen at younger ages. As you get older and, your prefrontal cortex is fully developed, those changes might not be as significant. But when you're younger, those changes can be pretty drastic. So you're figuring that out, and you're also figuring each other out and what you really want out of life, and all of that good stuff. So this is where I have to call myself out for being a little bit of a hypocrite, because I got married at 21. Rick and I started dating a few weeks after we met, and we dated for a year, and then we got married 3 months after we got engaged. So I am a little bit of a hypocrite. I get it. I acknowledge it. I'm willing to own it. Thankfully, it worked out for us. But, it's my advice to somebody else would be to just really make sure you're taking stock of those things and being aware of them before jumping into a legally binding document.
For you, like emotionally deeper than chivalry stuff, you guys. This man, my husband, he is the best communicator that I have ever known in my entire life. 30 years of life. I have never known anyone that communicates the way that my husband does. He knows that words of affirmation are one of my love languages, and he goes above and beyond for me in that realm. He is chivalrous, never letting me open a car door or a truck door, never letting me open a door at a restaurant, like always pulls my chair out for me, just serves me. He selflessly serves me in every moment, every day, and I'm so grateful for that. I don't know what I did to deserve that. Okay, the last question, because the lawn care company's here and it's about to get really loud. Who led in sexual purity while dating? Was it you or your husband?
Okay,
it was
no,
both of us.
We're done. We're stopping. I can't listen to another answer about a question like this. I really can't. She only had like 2 minutes left in her video anyway. We're cutting it short. Wow, what a ride we've had for the past hour of our time together. Thank you for sticking it out with me. Thank you for being my seat buddy on this roller coaster. I appreciate it. Let me know what you thought of the Q&A down below. If you have any additional thoughts or any answers you want to add to the questions that were asked, from your experience, feel free to put them in the comments section. And while you're doing that, if you would consider liking this video or subscribing to my channel, that would be incredible. And if you're subscribed already, thank you so much. I am so appreciative of you, and I love being able to just sit here, hang out with you, and talk about whatever. Thank you so much for watching. Please be kind to people, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.